Yeehaw!
Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Smith Classic Cars. This is my 1931 Buick 5-passenger sedan. 31 was the first year of the Buick straight 8 engine. But what makes this car really special is that my dad bought this when he was 15 years old in 1955 for $25. The junkyards didn't want them because they were full of wood. You'd have to burn the wood out to use the metal. My dad took this home and he kept it ever since. Drove it to Canoga High School, the same high school I went to. And we restored it in the 90s. And she still looks really good. Let me get it out and I'll give you a closer look. Well, all right, here we are. Let's have a closer look at her. 1931 was a huge year for Buick. Its famed valve-in-head 6-cylinder engines were replaced by the all-new straight 8s. And this was a big deal, as the new Buick straight 8 was considered one of the most advanced overhead valve engines of the day. The 5-passenger 4-door sedan was the most popular body style for the 1931 60 series, and just under 31,000 sedans of this type were produced in 31. The wheelbase is 118 inches and it weighs about 3,500 pounds. The base price was just over $1,300, which was a bit pricey considering the average car cost about $640 at the time. To put things in perspective, in 1931, gas was about 17 cents a gallon. Average income was around $2,000 a year, and you could buy the average home for about $7,000. The Buick has been a fixture in the Smith family for years and serves as a backdrop here for this picture of the OG Smith boys. From left to right, Uncle Lee, Grandpa Ed, my dad Dave, Uncle Chris, Uncle Dick, and my Uncle Bob. She was a good old girl, and there was some concern it wouldn't be enjoyed as much if restored, but when I suggested my dad keep his wedding gift to me and instead put the money toward the car's restoration, we got to work. My brother Joe, Uncle Chris, and I worked with my dad to get it done. This was the late 90s, and the car my brother and I learned to drive in was now like new. Here's my dad giving us a tour of the finished product.
They didn't make a lot of them in that year because it was the middle series. They had the 90 series, which was popular, and the 50 series, which Uncle Chris has. But it's Bolson blue. It's a straight 8 engine, 300 cubic inch. It's been rebuilt a couple times, but it's only got 80,000 miles on it. And I'll show you the engine now. It's got a lot of power. Not compared to today's V8, but keep up with freeway speeds, and everybody else slows down to let me go by. So I guess that makes me a winner. Let me go and show you the interior. This is all wool mohair interior, $90 a yard. The wood graining was done by moi. The back seat is certainly proper for a newlywed to leave the church in, that's for sure. I paid $25 for it. 1955, that is.
There's so much family history in this car. Grandpa towed it home and helped my dad with the brake and light inspection. This was my dad's first car. He drove this car to high school, as did my Aunt Mimi. My grandparents would use it for grocery shopping. There are some detailed stories of first dates, road trips, and after its restoration, it's been showcased in many family weddings. While registration costs have changed significantly, one number hasn't. The Smith family retains Dad's station as the 23rd member of the Buick Club of America, now approximately 6,500 strong. I've left the trunk largely untouched. Inside is a handwritten note by my dad in preparation for a cruise. The flower vase, he'd say vase as it's pretty fancy. I'm still looking for the right holder for this before it can be installed. And maybe strange to some, but also fitting to me, I carry a bit of my dad with me. He wouldn't have gone for the formality of a fancy urn on a mantle. He'd prefer a drink, a smoke, and to come along with me for a drive. The 60 Series Buick 8s had a 270 cubic inch inline 8-cylinder engine, producing 90 horsepower and just over 200 foot-pounds of torque. The 31 offered rubber engine mountings, oil temperature regulator, and a fuel pump as standard equipment. A fuel pump, you ask? Yeah, most cars of this era used vacuum-operated tanks like my 28 Chevy. A fuel pump offered more reliable fuel delivery. It has a Marvel updraft carburetor and a modern all-electric horn. On the passenger side, we have the brains, the distributor, the highly touted oil temperature regulator, and oil can conveniently affixed to the firewall to bump your head on when working on the car. Below the modern ignition coil, we have the generator, and on the other side of the distributor, the water pump, all gear driven off the same shaft. To the left of that, we have the France oil filter and starter motor. And there you have it, from front to back, nearly 4.5 liters of American know-how. By 1926, all GM cars had Fisher bodies, and they were made of wood and steel and were synonymous with comfort and craftsmanship. They were the first to use insulation to reduce noise and keep out the heat and cold, the first to have dependable window regulators, first to slant windshields to eliminate glare, and in 1927, Fisher began installing safety glass. They also pioneered the use of lacquer paint, reducing the time to trim a body from weeks to a matter of hours. Let me give you a closer look at their handiwork. It's a beautiful dash and instrument panel with manifold heat, oil pressure, water temp, speedometer, odometer, fuel and amp gauges, all laid out in a well-crafted Art Deco style. Pedal placement is standard with clutch, brake, and gas from left to right. The interior is rich, stylish, and comfortable with privacy screens, handles for entry and exit, footrest, and rack for a blanket or your coat. And what old car would be complete without the old school GPS? All right, let's go for a drive. bench, she drives good for a almost 90-year-old car. Nice and smooth, not a shake or a rattle. Steering's tight. It's a little heavy, of course. That goes through the territory. There's nothing power assisted on this car, of course. Mechanical brakes, mechanical steering. It's got a 3-speed transmission. Third gear is geared pretty tall. So in third gear, we're humming along here, 35. Engine's just cruising. Far easier to shift than the 28 Chevy. It's this is a real car. Straight 8 engine, plenty of power. She stops good too. Mechanical brakes, so you've got to apply some pressure, but works really well. You can see the back seat, everything's it's quite luxurious for kind of a base model car. It wasn't the fanciest of cars. I'm tempted to pull in this car lot and ask them what they would give me on a trade-in, just to see what they'd say.
Anyway, let's get serious. You want to buy this car, what? Yay or nay?
Well, I don't know. We have to think about it.
Yeah, what's there to think about? I mean, you told me you liked it. You asked me 10,000 questions. I answered every single one of them. You drove it. You love it. What more do you need to know?
It's a lot of money, and we just need the time to consider it.
Consider it. Well, why don't you consider this? You've been...
Back when the speed limit was 55, you could take it on the freeway, and my dad would brag that he would pass people and they would just freak out. Every time I get in it, I think of him, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm honored to take care of it for my dad. Well, all right. That's it for this episode of Smith Classic Cars. I hope you enjoyed my 1931 Buick. I certainly enjoyed showing it to you. We'll see you next time. McKenna on the left, and Jackie on the right.
Thank you very much. You're so kind.